This is The Franchise. As always, it's Nevin Brown, and I'm joined by
James Big Handsome Piercy.
Big Handsome. Is that your new wrestling name?
Oh, I wish. It's actually Cody Zeller's nickname.
Oh, his nickname is Big Handsome?
It's on Basketball Reference. It's official.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that ironic? Or was he considered handsome early on in his career? Doesn't he not have hair anymore?
Yeah, I believe that's true.
So it's like, generally speaking, when you go bald, people, especially if you're a white, like generally people don't refer to you as handsome once you go bald.
Not very often, no.
Yeah, it's, one of the follies with our race. Once the hair is gone, you're cooked.
You're cooked.
Unless you're Jeff Bezos, and then you're just so
rich. You're a billionaire.
Yeah, anyways, not here to talk about what ethnicities look better without hair. But my money is not on the gringos.
No.
Sorry, folks. We're not the master bald race. I can assure you of that. These jokes at these times, not so great. But anyways, this is a Houston Rockets podcast, and you should like and subscribe. And afterwards, you should rate and review. And we will have this up on YouTube, where you can now check out our stuff. And hopefully we'll add additional content over there as well. But go check out our YouTube. It's The Franchise, and it's probably going to be hard to find because we just got going. So put in that effort for us. Maybe
we'll find it, and it'll be easier to find for the next person.
Exactly. It's like explorers, right? Be the Lewis and Clark, so there can be the Oregon Trail. Out here with my analogies, killing it. Let's go. Anyways, the Rockets, they broke their 6-game losing streak, the shackles of a 6-game losing streak. They will play tonight, Wednesday, February 12th, against the Phoenix Suns, who played last night and got pretty badly beat by the Grizzlies, even though they made a late comeback, which is I love when teams make the score less bad when there's no chance of winning.
Yeah,
one of my favorite pastimes. But we're here to talk about the Rockets, their losing streak, how it's pulled them into the pack in the Western Conference, and whether or not they're in activity at the trade deadline, they will come to rue. So, James, I'm just going to ask you straight up, this losing streak, was it hard for you, or were you at peace with the fact the season has been quite good and this has been basically the one bad spurt?
I think losses 5 and 6 was when I started to break my will a little bit. There are some Rockets fans who every time the team loses a game, they're trading, two core guys for Kevin Durant or whatever, right? And I don't think I fall into that category. Even a 4-game losing streak, I felt like, we're still playing with house money. This team is like far ahead of schedule. Everything is okay. We're down starters. It's nothing to worry about. By loss 5, I was like, I'd really like to win a game. And by loss 6, I was like pretty frustrated, But we're good, man. We're all good. Everybody's all good.
It all it takes is beating the Raptors and you getting bragging rights over some portion of the people around where you live that care about
basketball. Pretty high portion, yeah.
Well, but what portion of people actually care about basketball? I'm sure of the basketball fans, they're mostly Raptors fans, but I wouldn't be surprised if in St. John's there are a few people who are like, I don't know, what the fuck is basketball?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a prominent mentality here, unfortunately. I'm more so with my friends who almost all like basketball. Because they're cosmopolitan people that don't think hockey is the best sport that was ever created just because it's the only sport they know,
Dude, I think it's like funny me imagining how like in Canada being a basketball fan like makes you cosmopolitan. Where it's like if you want to be a cosmopolitan,
well, in St. John's, in Toronto, it's the norm. But yeah.
What I'm just saying is like because like in America, it's like you want to be a cosmopolitan sports fan. It's like you got to like pay attention to like European soccer and now there's the faux Formula One fans, and it's like, oh, like I'm so sophisticated. I watch cars drive. I'm like,
a circle. Yeah. Sick.
Well, that's NASCAR. NASCAR is real dumb. At least Formula One, they like have it like interesting tracks where it's not just like ding ding. It's not
okay.
It's not like watching like track and field with cars. Like, what the fuck is that?
Before we stop digressing, one quick note. Me and the boys threw some lacrosse on a couple of weeks ago. There was nothing left to watch. I think whatever we were watching was over. There was lacrosse on TV. It's a pretty good game, man. This is my first time ever watching lacrosse for more than like a highlight, and yeah, it's pretty entertaining.
I'll say this: it's significantly better than hockey. I hope I don't offend any of
Yeah,
Canadian callers. I find hockey to be like, some people love hockey, and I just think they played too much hockey and got brain damage, because hockey is like fundamentally just. I understand it's probably fun to play, but when you watch the game, the people that are the best in the world that I know can like do incredible things, it's like watching pinball. It's just like, oh, I got the puck, yeah, throw it down the other way. I'm like, you guys can't exert any fucking control over the game, and you're supposed to be the best in the world. It's just,
yeah, madness. There's no way you're running plays out there because everything's just too mishmashed and chaotic.
Yeah, I'm like, you can't tell me the optimal strategy is like crash into a guy and throw the puck down. Like, oh no, like, did you see they controlled it for 2 passes? I'm like, okay. I'm like rugby has more control than this. Get the fuck out of here. Anyways, This is a long digression. People want to hear about the Rockets, not shit talking lesser sports. Well, yeah, people do love shit talk. Especially when they agree with it. Actually, people love to agree with shit talk. They hate to disagree with shit talk.
That's what makes it shit talk.
It's true. Yeah, man. So one of the things about the Rockets like 6-game losing streak, which mercifully came to an end because they got to play the Raptors, who are made a nice win now trade or something like that. The defense. So the defense fell apart pretty bad. Obviously, the Rockets' offense over that streak, their shooting percentages like were real bad, sub 50% effective field goal percentage, but they were able to overcome that with a 36% offensive rebound rate. So I think over that 6-game losing streak, their offensive rating was like 113.8. Not good, not great, but like right on kind of what their season average is at like 114. So I'm sure watching it probably felt like the offense was dog shit, but the offense was doing what the offense generally has done, which has been enough to be one of the best teams in the league. But the defense fell apart. And when I was looking at the numbers, yes, their opponents were shooting better from 3-point range. That's like, if a team ever goes on a losing streak, that's like, and the 3-point shooting hasn't changed against them in some way, your team is in real peril, because that's like generally how the losing streaks go. So I think they allowed like 37%, which is a little bit higher than they normally do. But it was just like their defensive rebounding fell off, and then their ability to force turnovers really fell off. And so it made me wonder how important Fred VanVleet is to their defense. Not in that he generates a ton of turnovers, even though he does do a pretty good job. I just wonder if having to use Amon as like your kind of primary point of attack defender, while he can do it and is good at it, you lose that ability to force turnovers. That's like kind of what makes the Rockets defense special. Like, they're not so great at preventing free throws. They're about an average rebounding team. They're really good at preventing the ball from going in, and then they're good at forcing turnovers. And it kind of just feels like they need those two things, forcing turnovers and stopping shots, to be a functional defense.
Yeah, so I think that is definitely a large factor with Fred out and unable to be that point of attack guy. And man is unable to roam and create chaos and be the defensive playmaker. But I also think that there's a similar relationship between Alperen Sengun and Jabari Smith Jr. I think that it's difficult to successfully run the scheme that Ime likes to run, that does to an extent insulate Sengun without somebody else who's like approaching 7 feet tall on the interior to cover ground as a weak side rim protector. I don't consider that to be some kind of big knock on Sengun. Like, we've been over this a lot, but the expectation was never that Sengun is going to be like an all-world defender. He just needs to be functional in a scheme. And when he has his guys that he's supposed to have with him, he's very much functional in Ime's scheme. But without Bari, I think it kind of falls apart. one thing about the Rockets is that they're like in a much broader way than this conversation. They're a depth over top end type of team, and so whereas some teams are like, if we lose this one guy, we're screwed. The Rockets are a little bit like, if we lose any of our guys, we're kind of screwed, because they need the whole thing to even be what they are conceptually. You know what I mean? It's like they need like their top 6-7 rotation guys, really.
Yeah. So I don't know if they need all of them, but they need enough of them, because part of this 3-game losing streak, they've been without Bari for a while and they've been fine without him. But you go without Bari and then you go down Fred and then for partially down Şengün. That's 3 starters. You can argue with whether or not Jabari Smith Jr. deserves to be a starter. He's one of the guys, if he wasn't starting, he would be the 6th man. So he's one of their, so 3 of their top 6
in the rotation, were
down, and then 2 of their top 6 has been out for the entire stretch. So it's one of those things where it's frustrating that they're on this losing streak right now, kind of as the Nuggets are really playing well, the Lakers are really playing well, and then somehow got Luka Doncic out of thin air would be the best way to describe it.
Yeah,
just like I said, you just luck is a thing that's real. The Lakers are just that team, that franchise with the luck. But yeah, and then Memphis has been playing really well. The Clippers have been playing really well. And so it kind of feels like basically everything that could have gone wrong went wrong from a standing standpoint for the Rockets, which is not fun, because sometimes you can kind of have these bad stretches, but no one is playing well around you. So it's okay. They're not making up ground, but this one was definitely, because I mean, we had a podcast where we talked about whether or not they could be the 2 seed, and it looked like they had a really good shot, and now it's going to be a dogfight, and I wouldn't back them right now to be able to overtake Memphis. One of Memphis, Denver, really right now, one of Memphis and Denver. I think those are the 2 biggest threats for number 2.
Yeah, but I mean, again, we talk about it it's one of the younger rotations in the league, right? With the exception of Fred and Dylan, it's mostly young players in the rotation. And so even in spite of the disappointment of slipping quite dramatically, the 5th seed is a really good position for the Rockets right now, insofar as preseason expectations from analysts, whatever, they played above their heads last year. They're playing above their heads again this year. And that's just, it's all about the long-term trend, right? The goal wasn't supposed to be a championship this year. It just, some fans started to get excited when they held that 2 seed for quite a while.
And they looked really good. And honestly, Fred comes back, Jabari comes back. There's no reason to think that they can't get back to being pretty close to the team that they were before this 6-game losing streak. I mean, I think their net rating, even with this downturn where you're only bleeding net rating when you're on a 6-game losing streak, I think it's plus 4.8. That's around 7th in the league. It's their defense. This is the one stretch where their defense hasn't been great. And it's, yeah. So this stretch really exposes, I think, the major flaw with their roster, which is, we did our quarter or third of the season awards, and I said, I think Fred VanVleet is their MVP. I don't care what the shooting percentages say. I'm not saying I'm vindicated, but I'm saying I'm vindicated.
It's a vindication.
I'm fucking vindicated. I'm vindicated, Diesel. So yeah. Fred VanVleet's super important, which is, in some ways, it's a little concerning long term. It's a little concerning for the rest of the season for their chances in the playoffs. I would actually say I don't think it's super concerning for them in the playoffs, because he hasn't been carrying them in terms of his production, but his presence in keeping everything together. I think his defense is incredibly underrated because of how good Amon's been this year, how good Brooks is. But yeah, man, the difference between the Rockets with and without Van Vliet seemingly is the difference between being a playoff team or being a high level playoff team and being probably out of the play in.
It's a bit hard for me to comment on this without segueing into the next topic. I'm not sure if you're ready to do that or not.
You can just go with the flow, man.
All right, man. All right. So yeah, we were gonna discuss. Like, I'll play the Nevin role and I'll host. The Rockets had a quiet deadline, acquiring Cody Big Handsome Zeller and Jaden. I'm not an NBA player. Springer. Springer has already been cut. Zeller is just money hanging around. Maybe they'll cut him if there's a buyout option or something that they like. Maybe they'll just bring him into the offseason. They basically didn't do anything. They got a second round pick for Alpha Kaba, who somehow is continuously involved in Rockets Hawks trades despite not being a real NBA player.
I thought that was a joke. The Alpha.
I know.
I was like, damn, Dan, someone like found the best 2K generated player name ever, and it's just like spread.
Apparently, he is someone. But so anyway, the question is whether the Rockets.
We need to find him and interview him for the pod.
Maybe come on, you know.
I mean,
tell us about the Houston Rockets. I wouldn't know anything about them, said Kava. The question is, should the Rockets have made a deadline move? And so the vis-a-vis, that's why I say that it's hard for me to answer without going into this topic, because I think the answer is yes. And I think they should have went and got a secondary ball handler, or second ball handler really is a better way to put it. Like, here's my thing, right? Reed Shepherd is a rookie. I have no idea how his career might go. I'm not out on him. I think that's ridiculous. But he's not ready to be a backup point guard for a team with any aspirations. Even he's not even a playoff caliber second string point guard right now. Like far from it, really.
Yeah, I mean, to be like, I think just to contextualize what it means as a rookie to be a point guard, Luka Doncic, who by his second season in the league was an MVP, as a rookie wasn't ready to be the point guard of a playoff team.
Probably ready to be the backup, though.
Perhaps, but there's a difference between Luka Doncic, I think, as a prospect, and Reed Shepherd. Granted, they both went third overall, so, you know, maybe they're the same person.
Yeah. No, now I'm laughing because the Blazers have both DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan, but anyway, that's a digression.
And don't forget Time Lord.
And Time Lord, yeah, it's crazy.
What a center rotation.
Indeed. So, with that in mind, the objective at the deadline should have been to upgrade Aaron Holiday. Aaron Holiday's like fine, like he's this viable second string point guard, but I think that somebody a little more dynamic who can like generate some offense instead of just kind of like a real placeholder guard, you know? Like Holiday is an above average point of attack defender. If that wasn't the case, I don't know that he'd really be an NBA player, but he is, and he can hit threes, and that's about it for him. You know, I would have liked to have been aggressive about trying to get Malcolm Brogdon in the door or Lonzo. The Bulls extended him, but if the Rockets, like, I don't know exactly who, you know, probably Malcolm Brogdon to be you know, quite honest, right? It would have been nice. I don't know. Maybe they didn't have options. But to me, there needs to be some shifting into like, okay, we're a playoff team now, meaning that we want to win as many games as we can before the summer comes. And right now, our biggest weakness is that we really only have like one point guard. Aaron Holiday, to me, is more like an undersized combo guard, you know?
He's a backup. He's hopefully your fourth or fifth guard, right?
Yeah, like I like him fine. I'm happy to have him on the roster. Yeah.
No, he's not someone you're like, why is he on the roster? You're like, fuck, this is our like backup point guard, because Jalen Green did the thing he does where he has a good 2 weeks and everyone's like, I told you I never sold my stock, and then he goes back to being Jalen Green for 3 to 4 weeks and the cycle repeats itself.
The March is coming too. You know it's coming. He's going to go on fire, and then everybody's going to get excited, and he's going to come out averaging anyway, man.
Yeah, and this isn't like me to say like Jalen Green has been better this year than he's been in any other year of his career. He's, while not being good and not having gotten better in the way that you want. He has at least slowly progressed throughout his career. This is not me shit talking him outside of the fact that saying he can't be your lead guard right now. Is that a concern for a guy taken second overall in their fourth year? A little bit. It's a little bit of a concern, I would say, but it's not like he's like the problem. Because once again, their offense was generally just as mid as it had been before, but it was relying incredibly heavily on offensive rebounding, which if you think about inserting Amon into the starting lineup with Brooks, with Green, with Şengün, like you're just going to have pretty good offensive rebounding with Eason in there for spurts as well. So like I thought they should have went to upgrade on Fred VanVleet. Or if you're going to make a trade, you either upgrade on Fred VanVleet or you find a decent, facsimile of him that can slot in. I just think the problem is that guy's going to be kind of hard to find without a serious outlay of salary, right? Like, because like Brogdon and D'Angelo Russell, which I would presume are probably the two best offensive guards you could have gotten that weren't strict upgrades on VanVleet. They're both making like 20 million this season. So like, do you want to, like, that means you're moving Jeff Green and Jock Landale. Like, okay, like, but then
that's
maybe,
okay.
That's okay. But then it's like, okay, so what, like Steven Adams, they've been pretty careful with him in terms of minutes. It's just, then you have to go probably find another center. Maybe you go get a guy on the buyout market. Maybe that's fine. But it starts making, you have to have almost like another move lined up that you like. And so it's not just, one first round pick that's kind of crappy or kind of protected. It's that and then a second to get that. And if you go look at the guys moved, it's like Brandon Ingram. No way you would want him on that contract, especially the one he just got. Jimmy Butler doesn't make any sense, age and positionally. DeAndre Hunter, not what they need. Even though DeAndre Hunter would be fun, just because it's like, what if we just only had giant wings?
Yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't have traded what he was traded for. I mean,
I would have considered it. It was two swaps of swaps, right? Like, and then Mark Williams that got axed because his body don't work. Also, he's a center. Kuzma, boom, no. Bogdan Bogdanovic.
Yeah,
I mean, that's one where he's been bad this year. He's got some money left, but there's a team option, I think, for the final year at 16. So he's got 2 bites at the expiring contract apple, which is something GMs always like. But he's been bad this year. But at the same time, the Clippers did receive draft compensation to take him on. So if you could have netted picks and gotten Bogdan Bogdanovic, I think that would have been a worthy gamble. I like the move for the Clippers. Valanciunas, not that you need. Caleb Martin, not that you need. De'Aaron Fox, that's probably an upgrade on Fred VanVleet. But that's like a totally different discussion. Levine moved for De'Aaron Fox, right? So it's just like,
what about Dennis Schroeder? He didn't get moved for much, man.
I mean, Schroeder is the guy that I think. Well, the problem with Schroeder is that he was part of a deal to get Jimmy Butler, so
he was. They
would have had to like work their way in there, and they would have had to like be, because I think he basically got moved as part of a salary dump. If the Rockets can't take him on as a salary dump, they couldn't have been a part of that move.
But couldn't they have played the role of the Pistons in this deal, right? And
I guess they could have sent like $8 million of expiring money to the Pistons. Yeah, they could have gotten in on that. But once again, the more teams you add to trades, the harder they get to.
So I would like. I guess it's it's a loaded question to ask, like, should they have done this or that, right? Because like they should have traded for Luka Doncic, but I don't think they had the option,
Of course they didn't. Because if they had the option, the Mavericks would have been like,
they would have taken it.
Whoa, wow, like this is a better offer than the one the Lakers are giving us, unless your only objective was to get Anthony Davis.
Exactly. I say they should have traded for a backcourt upgrade, but I don't know what was viable, feasible, or not. So it's less like of a criticism and more of an observation. I just think they should have gotten like it would have been better if they'd gotten a decent guard. You know, I wish they'd gotten one.
Yeah, I mean, Brogdon is tough just because of the injury stuff and him not having played much this year. And when you're a playoff team, if you're making a midseason trade, you kind of want to know that the guy you're trading for can still play basketball. Um, because them not being able to play is like pretty negative. It's a pretty missed opportunity cost. I don't like D'Lo as a player, but I do kind of like D'Lo on this Rockets team where they can just surround him with guys. He can shoot. He's shown that he can play off the ball a little bit. I mean, there's like a case to be made. He might be an upgrade on Jalen Green, and so
I hate to admit that, but it's probably a slight upgrade.
Yeah, and so you could have him be the backup point guard, have him close games, have like he could be very useful to you. He's an expiring contract. I don't think he's even making 20 million this year. The limited fake Sean Marks made some compelling points in my opinion about why the Rockets should have traded for him. But like outside of him, I don't really know. And he didn't get moved, which means either the Nets maybe didn't want to move him because they want to have not be like the worst team in the history of the universe, or what they wanted for him was too much, or maybe they kind of think that they can extend him on a good number and have him on a good contract, and that can get them more value in the long term. So you would need to like blow them away, and you don't blow people away to get D'Angelo Russell on an expiring contract.
No, you don't. Yeah, you don't. So again, it's a matter of like, in theory, that would have made sense. In practice, I don't know what happened. In a longer term way, the Rockets just have to monitor Reed Shepherd. He is further from the mark than you'd like him to be. He's a rookie. I'm not too worried, but like, he's capital B bad right now, and you know as well as I do that like the projection starts on day one to an extent, right? I'm definitely factoring in extenuating circumstances, like he hasn't been on the floor long enough to get a rhythm or get a feel for NBA basketball.
Been very sporadic.
Yeah,
I think that's been like the big thing. Is that has he even had a run of like back to like a week where they play 3 games and he gets 20 minutes in all those games? Like, I don't think
probably
he's even
not,
had that
honestly.
yet.
Probably
right?
not.
But
even in spite of all that, though, he has been pretty bad. Like, it's just worth keeping an eye on. Yeah,
I'm team not concerned
too.
I'm team not concerned about it in the slightest, because the way he's been bad is his shots haven't fallen. And what's the one thing we're very confident in him being good at the NBA level? It's shooting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Like Barry was supposed to be this generational shooter. He's gotten much better, and I think he will continue to get better. But I also don't think he's going to resemble the shooter that fans thought pre-draft, or analysts for that matter.
Sure, but Barry's actual shooting numbers in college compared to Shepherd's like weren't even close. That was a lot of projection on. He's shooting well. He's got great form. He's tall. He's got a good release.
Sure.
But Shepherd's shooting, like he shot 50% from 3-point range in college.
He did.
Right. I don't see him as like a 25% 3-point shooter. I don't see him as a 33% 3-point shooter. Does that mean he's a 40% guy on volume? I don't know. But like, I'm pretty certain at volume, he can be a 37 to 38% 3-point shooter, which is going to make him look significantly better than he's playing right now. His mid-range jumper was awesome in college. It was awesome in summer league. And he's taken a fair amount of them, and like he's shooting like 20% or less on them, right? Like, it's just when those things get to where like not even like they get to like not even like where I think they will, but just like not catastrophically bad, I think he'll be fine. But we're not here to discuss like whether or not Reed Shepherd will end up being
no.
because
It's just sort of like it's an extenuating point from like should they've gotten a backup guard because it's like I guess it's like this it's like okay so heading into next year what do you do like Reed Shepherd has not been even a decent NBA player yet. Do you go out and try to sign a guy or do you bank on him being able to fill that role? Maybe just stick with Aaron Holiday for another season. You know like eventually it's like listen kid if you can't be good we can't usher you into the role, you know? So it's just something to keep an eye on.
yeah, it's one of those. We can't play you unless you play well because of how good they are.
And
But
he's
it's
like, I
also
can't
it's
play
like,
well unless you play me.
yeah, like I can't play well
Yeah.
unless like you give me a chance to be a rookie for 1,000 minutes, and he's basically not really going to get that this year. So it's one of those things.
These are all points in favor of making a consolidation trade eventually too, right? But there's no rush. No, but I mean,
Yeah,
just in
yeah,
terms of like, yeah, this is part of the reason why, you know, if Reed Shepherd was on, if he'd gotten drafted to the Nets, they probably would have started him this year, and he's probably averaging 12 points on bad splits with atrocious assist to turnover. You know what I mean? But like he's getting the volume. He's probably had some highlights, hit some tough threes, whatever.
Had some games where you're like, holy shit, like this dude is going to be a monster shooter. But yeah, I mean, the thing with the Rockets, I think, is that I don't think they're ahead of schedule that much because Şengün made the All-Star team, and I know if you look at his basic box score stats, you say, are you sure about that? Like, and to be fair, like Sabonis has been really good and deserved it over probably Kyrie Irving, even though Kyrie's been great this year as well. But like Şengün made an all-star team, and I think he was a deserving all-star in like when you look at the a lot of the advanced metrics, like he's good. Amen Thompson's been really good. He's been better than I expected from an offensive side compared to what I saw from him as a rookie, right? Like the defense, not crazy surprising that he's already so good. But on offense, I think he's really figured out a way to chip in despite his limitations. The jump shot isn't good, but like it's looking better. And so it gives me hope that it'll be fine. I think he's pretty good at that little floater, right? He's contributing on offense in a way that I wasn't expecting at this stage. Jalen Green, he's hit or miss, but he's been more hit than he's been previously in his career. So he's looking better. Tari Eason, they've gotten like close to a full season out of him. Dylan Brooks has had like really concerning 2-point efficiency, but he's been hitting his threes at least. Jabari was rounding into form before he got hurt, right? Like I don't think they're ahead of schedule. It's like they just got a bunch of young guys who you expect to make either substantial or some growth early on in their career. And, you know, they got a coach that can get them to play good defense. And also, low key, Steven Adams, real concern the first 3 months of the season. He might just literally be done. The man's got an over 20% offensive rebound rate.
Oh, yeah. Last I looked, he was like almost doubling the next top offensive rebounding percentage. Like it's pretty ridiculous.
Let me see. I have the page up. It's nuts. His offensive rebound percentage is 22.4, which is higher than his defensive rebound percentage, which is 22%.
Who is second in offensive rebounding percentage? You don't have that open, I guess.
Well, for the Rockets, it's Landale at 13%.
No, I mean league-wide.
League-wide, second is Walker Kessler, and I don't have it up, but I know he's in like the 16% range.
Right.
But like 20% is absurd. Like people just don't do that in the modern game. 22% is something it's like mythical almost. Like Steven Adams is like a demigod of offensive rebounds. So, you know, he's doing the thing that he does well, and it's good to see. But you know, offensive rebounds can only take you so far.
Yeah, and the screening is the only thing that never left, actually, right? He's a unique player, man. It's like What's the deal with this guy? It's like, well, he's pretty bad on NBA standards at almost every part of the game. It's like, oh, how is he in the league? It's like, well, he's like the best ever in two really specific parts of the game. You know, it's this strange player build. Nobody grows up daydreaming of being Steven Adams. There's nobody, even in New Zealand, nobody's out there going Adams. You know, like it's not even impossible.
Dude, that would be funny. It's like when people like shoot, they're like Kobe, and like you playing pickup, you set a screen, Adams,
Steven Adams,
yeah, Steven Adams, just box the dude out.
okay.
Steven Adams. Everyone's like, what is? If you were playing with people that knew ball, they would find that fucking hilarious.
Yeah, they would too. Yeah.
Someone try that out. Leave in the comments how that went. Okay. I think we should talk a little bit about the teams around the Rockets before we get off this, because that's now a concern. The standings have gone not the direction you would like. The Rockets were firmly the 2 seed not too long ago, and now they're firmly the 5 seed. So the Grizzlies have pulled away. They have a 3-game lead on the Rockets, which is really a 2.5 game lead, because even though they beat them over this losing streak, the Rockets clinched the season series 3-1. So if they're tied in the standings, they get the gig. So the Nuggets have been playing great recently. They have only a 1.5 game lead, and then the Lakers and the Rockets are tied in terms of how many games back they are. But the Rockets have a slightly worse win percentage, but the Lakers have played 2 fewer games, and they are ahead in the loss column. They're 32-19. The Rockets are 33-20. And then below the Rockets, about 3.5 games apiece, are the Clippers and the T-Wolves, both of who have been playing much better as of late. The Clippers in particular, since they got this guy named Kawhi Leonard back. I don't know if people have heard of him. And then the Timberwolves, I don't trust, but ever since Julius Randle went out injured, they've somehow been playing better, which, like, who could have fucking guessed that?
Yeah.
Who could have guessed that, like, him and Ant weren't going to make sense, because they both hold on to the ball too much and aren't actually great playmakers. Okay.
I do not like Julius Randle. Nobody does, I guess. It's not even nice to pile up on him, but yeah.
He's just one of those guys where, like, he's a good player, but, like, he doesn't fit unless you're like, let's run the offense through him. And it's like, well, why are we going to run the offense through a guy who makes us mid as fuck?
Exactly. I felt like you were going to segue into a question.
So my question is this. The Lakers are weird. They obviously acquired Luka Doncic, which makes them significantly better. But even though they've been playing better, their net rating is still plus 1.1.
The Lakers.
Yeah, the Lakers, they're 32-19, and their expected record based on, like, point differential is 27-24. No team thus far has outperformed their win-loss record more than them. But they did turn Anthony Davis into Luka Doncic. So the question is that like a big enough upgrade for them to basically have banked their overperformance, and then actually now they're as good as their record suggests they are?
Man, I'm gonna say no, to be honest, because I feel like they made that move like it's a next year move, really. They're like, we'll take Luka right now, but it kind of left the team pretty depleted. Like, they just signed Alex Len to replace
Len the plumber, baby. Len the plumber.
Like, that's not great. I feel like they know that they're now pretty front court deficient and size deficient. Like, they don't have a starting caliber big man at all. But who? I mean, yeah, they don't, right? They don't.
I'll say this. I watched Luka's first game when they played the Jazz. So caveat, they played the Jazz. If you don't know about the Jazz, they don't defense. What's that? Walker Kessler is apparently a good defender. I believe he is, but the rest of that roster don't do too much. Jackson Hayes playing with Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves. Like,
forgot they had Jackson Hayes.
Jackson Hayes. He might not miss another shot.
Yeah.
Like he might literally shoot 90% the rest of the way, just because he's going to only catch wide open lobs. So they're front court deficient, but they have like 3 guys creating offense, and Luka in particular and LeBron in particular. that kind of can just make any center statistically productive on offense. The question is going to be like, can they play any defense? Because LeBron is 40, Reeves is, he's racially
James is
deficient.
white and Luka's white. Let's just,
Yeah.
and Alex Len is white. They're too white, man.
They're racially deficient on the defensive end.
Yeah, listen, I think the way I would frame it is almost like this: like Luka is certainly an upgrade over Davis in a vacuum, but Luka and an Anthony Davis facsimile is a bigger upgrade than Davis and a Luka facsimile. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like they need to get that big man. They tried with Mark Williams, obviously failed the physical or whatever happened. I suspect that this offseason they'll go get, I don't know, maybe Clint Capella, something like that. And like then they'll really be ready to cook next year, But I don't think in a vacuum, Luka is such an upgrade over AD alone. And AD that was having a really strong season, no less.
Yeah.
That it's going to bolster their net rating that much. That's just what I think. I think it was more of a long-term move. This year, I don't think the Lakers are really all that worried about what happens, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, this Lakers run was like very clearly looking like it was going to peter out, where it's like, we have AD entering his decline phase. LeBron's 40. He's still really good, but he's in decline. He just was so good at his peak that even after a decade of decline, he's still a top 10 player, which is like literally insane. But, maybe the best ever, one of the best 3 players ever by my estimations at the bare minimum. Yep. So he's pretty good at basketball. Yeah, they're weird. Like they're the team that's outperformed their net rating more than anyone in terms of win-loss. And so it's just like, maybe if they can keep kind of doing that, then it's going to be tough for the Rockets, I think, to catch them. But I generally believe in net rating being a pretty good indicator of team quality. And I think they shouldn't be quite as worried about them. The team that I think is going to be the toughest to overcome, because I think you really do want to be the 3 seed where you don't have to face OKC in a second round series if you win your first round one, going to be the Nuggets. I think, and because I think the Grizzlies have shown to be good enough and deep enough that now that they have this lead, it's going to be tough to go and snatch it from them. And so I think the Nuggets are more vulnerable, but they have Jokic. like we're talking. We talk about how good LeBron was at his peak. Jokic, like, you can go look at the numbers. You can say whatever you want about the numbers, but like Jokic might be having the best peak since the merger.
Yeah, I don't even care to. I prefer LeBron, but
I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm saying you could make a pretty
clear
argument.
Yeah. No doubt. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So no, I'm doubtful that we'll be able to chase the Nuggets. Again, at the end of the day, it's all house money this year, man. Like, you talk about winning a playoff series. If the Rockets win a playoff series this year, I'll throw a parade in St. John's, a 1-man parade. It'll be embarrassing. Like it's all good. But yeah, from a practical perspective, the Nuggets are going to be tough. The Grizzlies are going to be almost insurmountable. I think that if we can't maintain a hold over the Timberwolves, we've got problems. When their big move has been addition by subtraction, as you said, and it's a player that is going to be added back in, and I suspect that they'll still have chemistry issues because it's just a bad fit, right? And then the Nuggets, it's weird. Like, is Jamal Murray still having a bad season, or has he turned the corner?
So one of the problems when people play with Jokic is that they don't need to perform that well for the team to start performing significantly better, because he basically makes everything look so much better. He's been better. He hasn't been as good as he was last season, which was his best regular season of his career. So if he keeps looking better, that's going to be tough. Christian Brown has been really good this year. They look very smart for moving off of KCP, outside of the fact that he could have both, and that would be nice. Michael Porter Jr. is doing Michael Porter Jr. things, hitting shots. Aaron Gordon missed some time, come back. The only concern I have with them is just, what do you do with Russell Westbrook? Because they were playing well with him, and then he got injured, and they continued to play well. And I think Brown is
Yeah.
definitely a better fit in the starting lineup, but he was the guy that got pushed out of it. And I think that's more of a playoff issue for them. But like the only thing I could see really derailing they're not going to keep winning at the rate that they have recently. I think they, you know, rattled off some like pretty long win streaks recently and are in the midst of one. But like maybe Westbrook kind of like there's some internal turmoil due to that, but
Even still, how much is that really going to derail them, right? Like, I think they could find a way to strike that balance. Murray's like a combo guard. Maybe they can try lineups with Murray and Westbrook sharing a backcourt. You know, like I think that can work to an extent, right?
they were doing that for a bit, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like I certainly think Denver's a better team than Houston, right? But to me, in a way, the simple test is like, what were your preseason expectations and where are things now? You know what I mean? Like, I would have thought that, like, I knew the Nuggets were a better team than the Rockets coming into the season. So why would I be suddenly upset that the Nuggets are a better team than the Rockets? You know what I mean? It's like, of course they are. I expected that we were. I don't even really know at this point, you know, like to be way ahead of Dallas is quite a surprise. But obviously, they just traded Luka. I probably would have thought we'd be better than the Lakers. I think there's probably a pretty good chance that we will still be better than the Lakers, even though they got Luka. The Grizzlies and Timberwolves, I would have viewed as wild cards relative to the Rockets heading into the season. I probably liked us over Minnesota, maybe not quite as much as Memphis, and here we are, you know. So I guess that's my thing. It's like, when you're forecasting the rest of the season and what qualifies as a success or failure, you've got to remind yourself of like, what was I expecting and what was reasonable to expect in the first place? You know, the fact that they were the 2 seed for as long as they were shouldn't really change the calculus for anybody.
It shouldn't, but you know, that's not how these things work. And look, like they've had a great season. I'm not out on them. They're not as bad as their 6-game losing streak. And they probably weren't quite as good. And I think we even mentioned that when they were like, everything was really clicking. And so I remember looking at this for like last season. The biggest issue the Rockets had last season was they would like reel off losing streaks. Like it's just like, it was one of those things where they couldn't keep a losing streak at 2 games. So like it would go to like 3 or 4 or 5. And this year they basically cut that out, except for this one little blip when they've been, you know, down 2 starters the whole time, 3 starters for large stretches of it. So yeah, they just really need Fred to come back, and they need to be able to figure out a way to generate turnovers when he's not in the lineup. And I don't know if that's just because you can't have the guys that are your turnover, your event creators, your stock brokers, in Tari and Eamon. When you have Jabari out and you have Fred out, those guys need to do more on-ball stuff.
Yeah, team that like wins with their depth. It's a more delicate ecosystem. Whereas like when you have when you have a Helio ball handler surrounded by 3-and-D wing types, you know, like this is an example of a different type of team build. Well, you're screwed without that ball handler, right? But like if, you know, I'm just pulling names out of my ass, but if Jay Crowder goes down and you got Torrey Craig waiting, it's like, okay, well maybe your DPPM drops 0.4, you know, or maybe you got a 36% shooter instead of a 37.5% shooter next to him. But it's like ultimately you're fundamentally doing the same thing. It shouldn't affect you that much. Everything rests on that one guy, you know. With the Rockets, they kind of need every piece, or else every piece is load bearing, right? That's kind of where the team is at right now, I feel.
Yeah. And that's going to be, I mean, just in the future, that's going to be like the tough thing, is finding the guy in the backcourt that can really take over the mantle from Fred in terms of being the guy that runs the offense. Because like I honestly think his shooting struggles this season have been bad, and it's probably held the Rockets offense back a little bit. But I think everything else he does has like really helped them. And I think if you had a guy who's been more consistent from 3-point range, I think Şengün's numbers would be better. I think Jalen's numbers would be better. I think I think everyone will be looking a bit better. So that's like a long-term thing. I guess the only thing we wanted to touch on before we get out of here is the Suns. They traded their last tradable pick. Granted, you can keep splitting your swaps into oblivion. Not that I'm not that I think anyone would really want those at that point. It's like, you're not giving us anything, I don't think, at this point. You're like, yeah, no, we swapped with every team. It's like, oh, so you can only get the 30th pick.
Yeah.
And we can only get the 29th pick. It's like, yes.
Yeah. Sounds good, right?
Yeah. So shit's going bad for them. Ramona Shelburne of ESPN reported that the locker room is toxic. Wonder why. KD refuted that notion. But it's weird how toxic locker rooms follow that guy.
Wonder why.
Yeah, follow that dude. And he's like, I'm not toxic. You're toxic. I don't think KD's actually toxic. Yeah. I don't think he does anything to prevent those situations, and he always brings massive expectations, and I think he's slightly overrated as a player at this stage in his career in terms of how he raises a team's level. I think he's still super talented, super good, but I don't think he doesn't have a skill set that really raises other guys. It's more he gets the ball and he does his good thing, but it's not leading to better.
More of a ceiling raiser than a floor raiser.
Yeah, and Devin Booker had a struggled to start the year, but he's been better. And I think that's going to be the guy that makes the most sense for the Rockets to potentially try to get from the Suns. Question is, James, do you think the Suns will say mercy? Or say uncle?
How do you mean that? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, have you ever heard the term where you're, I guess you don't have an older brother, but you're like.
No, I know what you mean. I know what say mercy means.
Yeah.
Meaning,
will they throw the towel on this? Will they just be like, we can't win and we need to rebuild, and our best path to being able to do a functional rebuild isn't trading Kevin Durant and waiting for Bradley Beal's contract to expire and using the picks we get back for Durant, which are not going to be great because of his age and his proximity to free agency, and try to build around Booker because it might be by the time you can build that team, he's already fading. It's like, are they going to come to the terms with their only way out is through demolition derby, right? They need to blow everything up and try to get their picks back, which the Rockets actually happen to have a fair amount of.
Yeah. Let me pose it to you. Let me answer your question with a question, as they say. What if the Rockets say, and this is the thought that's consuming me lately, what if the Rockets say, man, sorry, but actually we're not interested. We don't really want Devin Booker badly enough to send you 3 unprotected firsts along with him. We don't think there's a 3 unprotected firsts gap between Jalen Green and Devin Booker anymore. So we'll give you Jalen and one of your picks back if you want, but we're not really interested. We'd rather just keep your picks because we don't think you're going to get any better. And, we like the odds of those picks landing high and maybe getting a better player than Devin Booker. That's where I'm at right now. Who's Devin Booker? Why would the end game of this massive tanking process, all aimed at getting Wemby and everything? Why would Plan B be Devin Booker? He's very good. Don't get me wrong.
So
right, but yeah, he's not a franchise-altering talent.
Yeah, so that's kind of my opinion on Booker as well, but that's not the general consensus among a lot of basketball people, from what I can tell. People really think Devin Booker is really good. He's obviously a really good NBA player. He's kind of one of those guys where when you look at how his teams have performed with him as the guy, it starts to make you kind of wonder, well, how good is he really? Because before Chris Paul showed up, they weren't a playoff team. Chris Paul shows up and they make a finals and then have the best record in the league the next season. And that starts to fade. They move, and they had great support pieces. And Mikal Bridges, I think, finished second defensive player of the year. Cameron Johnson, very good stretch 4. And they had Jay Crowder before that. They had a really good really well built out team. And he got a ton of credit for that finals run. And you kind of go look at it. It's just it's the classic team makes good run in playoffs. Guy who scores most points must have that dog in him, must be next Kobe. Like
I also think there's an effect with Devin Booker where you're like, if you just like are looking at a checklist of abilities, then he's really good. It's like, man, he's got incredible footwork, great touch. He's got a mid-range game. He's got the in-between game. He's a little bit of a ball don't stop guy, right? And he's a plus positional passer. He's not a defensive liability. So you look at it and you're like, the sum of it all is you're like, okay, this is one of the better players in the league. But then maybe it's just lack of athletic ability. I'm not quite sure, but for whatever it is, like I don't think he impacts winning at that top tier level. He's like a fringe top 20 player in terms of on-court impact.
So I view it like this with guys like him, and it's like one of my criticisms of Anthony Edwards, and it's really the direction the game has gone, is the shooting guard position is by definition not a good position to play.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
It means you're not actually that good. It doesn't mean there are guys that are shooting guards that are good, and they're good shooting guards, but they're not that good. Because if you have all of the offensive capabilities as a scorer to be a good shooting guard, then teams will just make you play point guard, which then means you have to have that creation as a passer. And being a positionally good or solid passer for a shooting guard makes you like a bad to maybe average passer as a point guard. And then when that guy's running the offense, it's just not quite as, it doesn't raise that team's offensive level quite as much. And then kind of the mindset of shooting guards when they try to go over to being a point guard, it's not there. They don't have that feel for the game that they need to about like spacing or whatever it is about finding teammates. And it's just not how they're wired. And I feel Booker is one of those guys where like you see the skill and the talent and you're like, why can't he do this? And it's like the way you process the game, the way you understand the game is incredibly important. It's like you have to speak a certain language to be one of these tier one offensive initiators. And he doesn't speak that language. He speaks a different language that makes him really not even like, I think his scoring slightly overrated. I think guys that can score well in the mid range generally get overrated. Like he's not a Durant in the mid range. If he was Durant in the mid range, it'd be a different story. But like, he's DeMar DeRozan on offense, except he can take threes, but he's not as good at grifting for free throws. And DeRozan might honestly be a more valuable playmaker because he's such a low turnover guy. So yeah, like I agree with you that like I wouldn't give up those picks for Devin Booker because my feeling is like if they trade Kevin Durant, they're not going to be a playoff team, not in the West.
Exactly.
Like
those are Devin Booker gets hurt, the worst team in the league. Like who knows, right?
Or they just say
that's where I'm like,
trade him. And they don't get their picks back.
We'll just find another way to rebuild. Yeah. So there's a lot of possibilities. I don't like the idea that it's like a fait accompli that the Rockets are just gonna get one of the Suns. I would urge Raphael Stone, if he listens to the franchise, which I'm quite sure he does, to
hire us.
Consider hiring us as co-presidents of basketball operations. No, but just consider hanging on to those picks, man. Just tell us, like why bail Phoenix out? On some level, it's like we don't want your Devin Booker as much as we want your possible generational talent if things break right in the draft.
Yeah, it's like if they were in the Eastern Conference, kind of like the Nets were with that podunk team, where the Nets are like, hey, like, if we don't get those picks back, like, we're never going to start tanking. And so, like, yeah, maybe you can get lucky and, like, hop up in the lottery odds. And maybe we, like, make it as the 8th seed. But they're not. They're in the West. Like, the Lakers looked like they were going to be dog shit in 3 years. Now they have Luka Doncic, so they're not going to be. The Warriors keep finding ways to add talent. Maybe they'll be bad, but, like, the Trailblazers. Apparently, the Trailblazers are the best team in the NBA right now. The Spurs are coming. Like, it's like they're going to have a hard time making the playoffs. I mean, they're having a hard time making the fucking playoffs, and they have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in his prime and Bradley Beal. And like Bradley Beal, obviously the contract is bad, but he's still a good player.
And and let me say this too, man. Like, there's a fantasy with Rockets fans that maybe we could bring in Ant Edwards someday, right? That's a pretty common, like, it's not going that well in Minnesota. It's not that hard to deduce that maybe he might decide he wants out someday. If you're quite sure Ant Edwards is a career Timberwolf, I think you have a naive worldview. You know what I mean? So we'll see how it goes. But generally, it's understood. Like, okay, maybe you could get him, but you're going to give up one of Şengün or Amen Thompson, right? But maybe if the timing's right and it's 2027, 2028, whatever, Suns are like bad, the Mavs are bad, the Rockets got both of their 2029 picks. Maybe you can give up Jalen Green and 6 first round picks if 2 or 3 of those picks look like they're on track to be really, really valuable, and bring in Ant Edwards and keep him with this core dudes that you got, right?
Man, Edwards is like Booker for me, where it's like
he's better though.
He has the potential to be better, but they're similar in that they're both shooting guards that I want to play next to a real point guard. And I just want my best guard to be the guy I play at point guard. Like that's just my fundamental belief that if you go look at teams that like they're a guard, their best guard is their point guard most of the time, right? Like there are certain exceptions where it's like, the Celtics, but they have like Tatum, who's like the best probably point forward right now in the NBA. And then they have Derek White, who's fucking awesome. They have Drew Holiday now. They have Jaylen Brown, who I'm not like a huge fan of, but like, they have enough ball handlers that like they don't need their best guard to be their lead ball handler. But like pretty much every other good team, that's the way it works. Like Jamal Murray is the Nuggets' best guard and he plays point guard, even though he's like kind of a shooting guard. Right. And even he, I don't think is quite good enough. And it just works because Jokic is the center, the point guard, the moon, the stars, the sun, like he's everything.
Yeah.
So that's why I wouldn't would you want, for me, it's like, is Ant Edwards worth 6 first round picks if you're trying to get him to become a championship team? Maybe if you think it makes you a championship team, but we've seen that he can't make the Minnesota offense good without Mike Conley being pseudo productive.
Let me get into a few things, and then we probably should clue off soon. But let me say this: I think that the Rockets in this hypothetical would be uniquely structured to facilitate that guard who's not really a point guard, but he's your best guard anyway, because they get so much playmaking at the 5 spot and maybe at the 3 spot if a man continues to develop, right? So when the other 2 guys in your core 3 are really good passers, it helps with that, right?
That's a fair point.
Yeah, so that's one thing.
That's a good point. I like that point.
Right, Ant makes sense with his team. So does Booker in theory. I just don't think he's good enough to give up the value,
And because he's older and he's had an ACL injury, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at them head to head this year, Ant Edwards is averaging 27.5 points per game. Booker's at 26.2. The true shooting is nearly identical, 59.4 versus 59.3. But I like the shape of Ant's efficiency better because he's shooting 42.4% from deep. Booker's at 33.9. And one of the sneaky things about Devin Booker, which you kind of alluded to, is he's not really a great 3-point shooter. He's actually not a very good 3-point shooter. He just, for some reason, the legend of Devin Booker is this great 3-point shooter. He's a gifted shooter. He's fluid and he can alter his shot and hit contested shots and stuff. But he's never been a great high volume 3-point shooter.
It's just racial stereotyping because he's light skinned. It's dude, the lighter your skin is, the better you are at 3-point shooting, and the worse you are at defense. That's how everyone's brains work.
And it's kind of how the brains are wired, yeah. Last thing, Ant Edwards, box plus minus 3.8, Booker 1.2.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing with Edwards. That's the reason why I would be more willing. Edwards you might be right that he might actually be the perfect guy because he can defend. And if
he defends his ass off, really.
Yeah, and so if you throw him in there with Amon, Tari, Jabari, and, let's just say fucking Şengün, right? Şengün's shown that he can be pretty good at doing what they need him to do, and those guys would definitely allow him to keep playing that way. I actually like that more now. Maybe he would be worth 6 first-round picks for the Rockets in particular. I don't know if in a vacuum I believe that, depending on what you need him to do on offense in terms of creation for others. And the other thing with Edwards is like he's as good as Booker now, probably better, maybe as good on offense. He's definitely, I think, an overall better player, at least he's been this season. But he's young enough that can get better. I don't think he's ever going to be, like he's never going to be Tyrese Halliburton, where it's like this guy is one of the best passers in the league. But he doesn't need to be because he can really shoot it, he can really defend, and playing with the guys that the Rockets have, the playmaking and the defense, he won't have to ramp up a super high level, so he could like really, 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 really focus on scoring. I like that. Now we're talking about pipe dreams because Minnesota ain't Dallas. They're not run by a shoe executive who botched a Steph Curry presentation, who somehow grifted his way into being a general manager. They're run by Tim Connolly, who's generally done really good work throughout his career. Yeah. So,
and would have to force his way out.
He'd have to force his way out, and Houston would have to be the spot he'd want to go. But I think, I don't know. I feel I feel like Ime Udoka and Ant would get along. They both got that like fuck you mentality, tough guy mentality. Yep. I think.
Yep.
I really think Amen Thompson is someone that I think all the players in the league already are catching on that he's really good. But I think next year is going to be his like like last year guys were like, no, Şengün's like that guy's a dog. Like players love Şengün because of how he can score in the post and like do that one-on-one stuff. I think next season Amen's going to have that run, and it may even be to close out this year and into the playoffs, where guys are like, no, like you understand, like this dude can defend, he can do anything. Like he's gonna be a player's player.
Yeah. And also I would say this 6, I just pulled the number out of my ass, obviously, but you'd be compensating for the fact that like you're aiming not to give any good players out, right? You're giving them poor man's version of what they already have in Jalen and then compensating with picks. So
yeah. I mean, like to me, that's why you get all these picks. That's why I'm like, don't waste your picks because it means you don't have to pay with players, and players are more valuable than picks when you're trying to win right away. And who knows? Maybe Reed Shepherd turns out to actually be good, and then Ant Edwards can slide into his like perfect preferred role as a shooting guard next to like a table setting point guard that can hit threes. Oh man, that team.
Let's bring it home, man.
I know. I'm just thinking about how many steals a fully actualized Reed Shepherd next to Anthony Edwards, next to Amen Thompson, next to Tari Eason, next to Alperen Şengün. How many steals that lineup?
A lot of steals.
The Thunder are at a 16% turnover rate on defense this year. That team, I think that lineup could challenge that. So. All right. This was the franchise. If you haven't liked or subscribed and you've made it this far, think about doing that. That would be nice. If you're checking this out on YouTube, you can do the same. If you're not checking this out on YouTube, you can go to YouTube and subscribe there as well, so you can watch us talk instead of listening to us talk, right? It's like you take a look with your eyes. You look with your eyes, not your hands. You hear with your eyes, not with your ears. Something of that ilk. James, do you want to plug anything?
SpaceScoop.com. Check it out.
Do it, folks. It's the best place for all your written Rockets content. James is one of the best Rockets writers. He's also just a good writer. So, like, sometimes... Well, no, I mean, because, dude, like, no offense to people that are maybe, like, doing this shit. But, like, a lot of people that do write in the sports world can't write.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's hard to read. Maybe the ideas aren't dog shit. Maybe the research isn't bad, but the writing itself is not very interesting. So learn a little and also be entertained and have your brain expanded through words.
Words about the Houston Rockets.
Words on the Houston Rockets. Check out my Substack, Above the Break. It is free. I'm over 100 subscribers on it, so I'm trying to keep adding to that so I can one day start charging some suckers for some money on it. I write about the general NBA. I'm working on a piece called Fading Stars. 4 players who have made all-star teams or all-stars this year that are having bad years compared to where they were before, but also have shown multi-year declines. All 4 of these players are considered to be good, and you might be surprised at who they are. And so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's okay. It's okay stuff. I write the stuff. And sometimes I do videos on my reactions to trades. So that's how James learned that Luka Doncic got traded.
Could not believe my eyes, man. Pure shock.
I know. He thought he got pranked, which would have been a pretty elaborate prank, but also not a bad one on my part.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Rockets play tonight. Hopefully, this episode will be up. If not, maybe they'll be on a 2-game win streak. Maybe they'll have lost 7 of their last 8. Who knows? That'd be sad. But the All-Star break cannot come soon enough because they need Fred VanVleet back and operational. Thank God he wasn't named an All-Star. Not that he would have participated. He would have been the last pick. I can tell you that much. All right, yeah. So we'll be back.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I wonder who would have picked him. Team Shaq, Team Kenny, Team. Anyways, we'll be back in like a week, and peace.
Peace.